Thursday, so this is Coffee with Ralph. Hey, I need to put a plug in there for myself in Fireproof Wealth Management. Coffee with Ralph's a free 15-minute call, which you're watching me either on Facebook or LinkedIn, but I also have a YouTube channel, Coffee with Ralph. You can tune in there as well. I want you to think about who you could pass this link along to, because this next month is going to be an interesting conversation. It's going to be Long-Term Care Awareness Month in the month of November. And we're going through the Medicare season, so there's not much I can say about the Medicare Advantage programs on air. So I thought I'd talk about the one area that in big bold print in their book, they say we do not cover long-term care. And interestingly enough, November is Long-Term Care Awareness Month. Listen, I'm going to say it again. Coffee with Ralph is a free 15-minute phone call. Ask me about it. It's real simple. I share stories of people that I know personally and my own personal stories that help bring this whole issue at home. But let me start with years ago when I first got in this business. I worked for who I thought was a pretty blunt, if that's the right word, manager. I brought a couple in one day, and he had some sizable debt, and I'd been talking to him about buying some life insurance just to cover that debt. And as I sat there with this manager, I said, I brought the whole story to him, and he said, well, bring him in and I'll talk to him. I said, great. That sounds just what I need. I mean, I'm a new agent, so let's talk about it. So he sat there, maybe 10 minutes, and he was pitching the idea that, there's a liability here. It's the debt, blah, 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 And he kept getting all the same answers I got. Well, she doesn't like the house. She can sell the house. Well, she doesn't need the cars. She can sell the cars. And Lou looked right at him. He put down his pen, pushed his pad away from him, and he looked him square in the eye and said, so let me ask you, you don't love your wife, do you? Well, I'll tell you what, I about crawled under the table. I couldn't imagine somebody saying that to a guy about his wife. Here I am all these years later, and I think maybe I'm too blunt sometimes, because that's a question I've used 100 times in different fashions over the years. And I keep thinking back to that, especially when I'm starting to talk about this thing called long-term care. Because honestly, when I talk about planning for care, I have to look the man straight in the eye, because honestly, we don't take as good care of ourselves as our wives do, and B, we've abused our bodies all these years, and well, C is we just don't think we're ever going to break down. Our bodies are never going to give out on us. Our minds are never going to give out on us. And even if it did, well, she'll know what to do. And, that's such a incorrect, rude, unresponsible answer. Because when it comes down to it, as I sat there with a couple just the other night, and we were talking about this, he's right. My wife will know what to do, because she'll do whatever she has to do to take care of me. And, well, vice versa. Something happens to the wife, we'll do whatever we got to do to take care of him. And the story after story unfolds itself to these couples that carry that attitude and don't really sit down and do the planning that's necessary for long-term care. And all of a sudden it happens. I was reading an article the other day, and the gentleman commented, well, I'm sure glad Dad was there to take care of Mom, and he took care of Mom at home until the very end. Of course, he brought people in on a daily basis to help him. Mom had dementia, but then Mom died, and Dad looked at the family and said, I'm done. And several months later, he died. Well, they said of a minor heart attack, but it was probably, he was wore out. You don't realize how much effort and energy it takes to take care of somebody in that situation. And even if we're there to help our parents, we don't realize, or we don't think about, maybe it's not realized, we don't think about what the other parent's going through. We just don't, we assume they're okay. Well, the truth is, a long-term care nurse told me this once. She said, those that take care of the chronically ill become chronically ill themselves. What a comment. What an observation. Because it wears you out. Imagine trying to figure out how to keep your loved one from wandering out in the middle of the night because, well, now they have sundowner syndrome. What's sundowner syndrome, they ask? The body's clock gets messed up. It doesn't know the difference between day and night. It'll sleep during the day and get up during the night. It's called sundowner syndrome. We just forget, the body forgets what it's supposed to do. The mind forgets at nighttime, sleep time. And so they get up and wander. Imagine having to think about, how am I going to secure this house from the inside to make sure that they don't wander off? Where do I put the car keys? How do I make sure they can't just walk out the front door? So many questions. So the truth is, somebody dealing and watching that is probably not getting the proper amount of sleep and probably not the proper nutrition. But I don't want to talk about this like it's something awful. It's a fact of life. You know, when I have a couple that are sitting there, I got to remind them both that what we're doing is we're not planning to take care of the affected one. We're planning to take care of the unaffected one. Because that's who's left, right? We're going to do what we need to do. That's who we are. There are so many aspects to this that people don't want to talk about. And of course, the biggest one is, how do I pay for it? You know, in that same article with that comment at the end was the fact that, you know, there's a number of researches and studies that have concluded that it can cost 50-60% of your asset base. You know, you retire with $1 million, it could cost you $500,000 just to take care of one or the other. And even if it doesn't, there's still the emotional, which needs to be dealt with. The biggest problem, well, I'm not sure who said it, but somebody once said that failure to plan is planning to fail. And it's the truth. If you have to make the decisions on the spot for what's going to be best for my loved one, my spouse, they're not always the best decisions because it's emotionally charged. Why not deal with it when we're healthy? Why not bring the family in so they're not stressed about what they feel their responsibilities are? Why not spell it out? Well, it's simple. It's called denial. We deny the fact that we're going to ever need it. I mean, frankly, I'm 65, be 66 years shortly. And, you know, up until this last year, well, last couple of years, I didn't feel that old. I still don't feel that old, but my body's telling me it doesn't bounce back like it used to. I know last week, I think I talked about just recently had to get a deer out of the swamp that I'd harvested and how it just took everything out of me. Well, I can look back 10 years and that deer would have been thrown on my shoulders and I'd have walked out with it. You know, it's no big deal, right? Now it took me 2.5 hours to do what 10 years ago would have taken me a half an hour. And the thought was in my brain, I'm not going to be able to do this forever. And it's something I very much enjoy doing. So I'm going to have to find somebody young to help me drag these things out, right? Or get a more powerful winch on the 4x4. Wow. So many things that are just entering this picture that, well, here recently I've dealt with an issue of vertigo, which now that I'm looking over, I see it's almost an epidemic since COVID struck. People who've had COVID seem to be getting vertigo down the road a little bit. I'm not sure why. Nobody can really say it. Nobody says it's connected. No, but it seems I didn't have any problems with it until I went through COVID. And it's been a couple of times now. And I'll tell you what, if you think that's fun, imagine getting out of bed at night and just going right down to your knees because everything's spinning around you. You don't sleep well, you don't eat well because you're always nauseous. It's just, okay, no big deal. Hey, I need to mow the grass. There's only one problem with that. A few turns and all of a sudden I'm sick and everything's spinning again. Or how about snow blowing? I mean, can you imagine holding on to a snow blower and everything's spinning? Whoa, my goodness. What fun is that? Or just doing the simple things like getting down on the ground, climbing underneath and tightening up a screw so that on a loose faucet. It's not what it was 10 years ago. 10 years from now, it won't be what it is today. And so my mind leaks back to this question about who's going to help me. And I had a couple sitting here said, well, I trust my children to make good decisions. I said, well, let me ask you a question. And said, it seems like a weird question, but maybe you'll get my answer. I said, you have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, right? I said, yep. I said, have they all made the same career path choices? Well, no. Do they all drive the same car? Well, no. Did they all buy the same house? No. Then what makes you think they're all going to make the same decision about mom's care? It's not that they don't love you, and it's not that they don't make good decisions. It's just they're not all going to make the same decision for you. So why is it that we don't sit here and tell them what those decisions are before? That shields them from that family strife. It shields you from not getting the care that you deserve and expect. And all of a sudden it dawned on her that I was right. It's not that they don't love me, it's that they all love me. It's not, but we all have different relationships with each child. I mean, I know that. I've got 2 daughters and they're both different. Night and day. But they're good kids and they make good decisions. But I don't communicate the same with both. So why would I expect them to make the same decision when it came time for my care? Why don't I make those decisions? So listen, coffeewithralph.com is a free 15-minute phone call. It gets the ball rolling if you want it. If nothing else, I can get you some resources that you can look into, make your own decisions. By the way, I don't force stuff down people's throat. I don't even try. That's for some younger person that's got more stamina than me. If I educate you on the risks that are involved in this, and how we talk about how you're going to pay for it, and you choose not to do anything, your choice. I've done my job. I can't force people to plan for this. Some people aren't even going to face it until they have to face it. And then it's not going to be what they think it's going to be. I've got stories for that too. I have dealt with every aspect of this. So coffeewithralph.com, or hey, you may call my number 616-690-6548. I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you about this area. Education, that's what it's about. I'll pass on any resource that I've got to you so you can make a valuable decision. But over the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk about the different areas. We're going to talk about home care. We're going to talk about what does that look like? What does it look like to do? I know it sounds adult daycare. Yep. Some of us might need it, and it's not a bad place to be as long as it's done properly. extended care. You know, what happens when I can't stay home anymore? Who makes that decision? There's a big one. And so we have to set those parameters. But we're going to talk about each one of those over the month of November. And when I'm done, hopefully you'll have enough information to make an informed decision about your care. Hey, it's been wonderful. I enjoy talking. I hope there's value in what I give you. I want you to have a blessed week, and I'll see you next week. Remember, Coffee with Ralph is a free 15-minute call. So coffeewithralph.com.